Hey, it's Shayna. Welcome to Control Chaos, the podcast where we dive into the world of recovery, sharing stories of experience, strength, and hope from those who have been there and made it through. No matter where you are in your battle with addiction, alcoholism, or mental health struggles, know that there is a way out. Throughout my sobriety journey, I have often felt alone and doubted my ability to even stay sober. Starting this podcast in my room just 2 months ago, I had a dream of reaching people just like me, those who felt hopeless. As a woman in recovery, I began with 0 followers, but with a dream of offering hope to even just one person. The mission of this podcast is to connect, inspire, and provide hope to those feeling lost or struggling with addiction. Remember, the opposite of addiction and isolation is sobriety and connection. Let's come together through the Controlled Chaos podcast and support each other on the journey to healing and growth. Hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and let's build a community of support and understanding. Love you mucho. Hey, my name is Shayna, and I'm your host for Control Chaos today. We have my friend Zach with us today. And can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you. I know that's a loaded question.
For sure. So a little bit about me. So I've been in recovery from alcoholism, drug addiction for 7 years. And then I do a lot in the professional space of substance abuse as well. Most of the people who do know me, they know me as Zach Livingston, the interventionist, the dude on A&E's TV show Intervention, blah, blah, blah. But I think when you really boil it down, I mean, I'm just a guy who's really passionate about recovery and everything it has to offer, and I'm just hoping to share that.
Yay, I love that. It's funny because I actually stopped watching like all Dr. Phil intervention, all that stuff like back before I got sober because I used to watch that during all of my addiction and be like, I wish someone would come get me.
Yeah,
So now I stick to the happy stuff, right?
right. And it's funny too because one of the things that they asked me before I ever did that show, and they kind of interviewed me for it and everything. One of their questions was, "Have you watched it?" And it's like I've seen it, but did I ever actually like sit down and like watch it? No. At the
Right?
same time, I get the appeal. I remember, I think it was like my first treatment center. And just to put like a little bit of context into the timing, I'm 35 years old right now. My first treatment center, I was 19. And I remember we used to like, for whatever reason, the dudes in the treatment center just really loved watching the show Intervention. And I
Right.
remember I remember sitting on like this couch in like kind of the lounge area watching the show and thinking, I'm never gonna be sober, but if I was, that would be cool to do. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
fast forward 14 years later, when I was 33, we started filming um, my first season of the show, and I was like, this is kind of a trip.
Isn't it kind of funny how those, like, I call them like God moments are like planted in your life even before you're like really ready or know anything about it? It's like this is coming, right? And it's
Yeah.
kind of cool. So no, I actually got to know you from Instagram. I started seeing you on podcasts, seeing you talking, and I was like, who is this tattooed guy that is almost looks like he should be nerdy, but he's not, right?
Yeah,
I feel
pretty
like you
much.
probably get that a lot, hey?
Dude, so all my buddies, especially Darren Hobbs. If you don't know Darren Hobbs, you need to go check out his stuff. That dude is
Mhm.
a hitter. And I
Yes.
mean he's mentored me every step of the way, and that's a completely different story. You talk about God
Yes.
moments and planting seeds. But they make fun of me all the time because, like, have you ever seen on like TikTok or something like that where it's the dude who's just blasted in tattoos and they cover up all his tattoos and like reveal him to like his wife or like his mom and stuff like that?
Yeah.
They make fun of me all the time. So they were like, "Yo, if we did that to you, like you could pass as like a banker as long as we dressed you appropriately."
You
You know?
could, you definitely could.
Uh, but
All
then
right. So, what was kind of like your upbringing, or what was your earlier childhood like?
Yeah, so my earlier childhood was dope. Like
Mhm.
I mean, I wanted for a lot of stuff, but I needed for absolutely nothing. Both
Right.
parents in the picture, both parents super cool. Um, Both actually were naval officers too. So,
Wow.
and they were not what you would picture. You know what I mean? Because most people, like, you hear that, like, oh, like I had
Mhm.
both my parents were officers in the Navy, and you would think it was kind of, one of those households where it was like, you will make your bed at 0700 and you will, and it just wasn't like that at all. They
Mhm.
are just super laid back and cool, totally normal. One older brother. Um, I think with me though, like growing up, and this is so cliche, I'll I'll
Mhm.
I'll just stamp that out right now. But growing up, it was one of those things. Like even though I was like one of the popular kids in school and friends with everybody, I just never felt like I fit in, because like I didn't
Okay.
really feel like I fit in like here, like in
Yeah.
my own body. You know what I mean? And it was
Mhm.
kind of one of those things where I was just being the best chameleon that ever was, because I could just blend into any kind of situation. Like I could
Mhm.
blend in with the jocks because I played sports. I could blend in with the skaters because I also skateboarded. I could blend in with like the country boys because I was also always like bass fishing and hunting and riding four-wheelers and doing all that stuff. And I would just like kind of leapfrog around these different groups to fit in, but never really, as a result, felt like I fit into any of them.
Okay. So where did like drugs and alcohol come in?
Um, Alcohol came in first. And I mean, that's probably not uncommon, definitely not uncommon, but it came in super early. Like I was 10
Mhm.
years old when I had my first drink. And I remember, so when I took my first drink, like I can still very vividly and like romantically remember exactly what it felt like, shooting
Mhm.
it back, having it go down my esophagus, burning the hell out of my esophagus, but having that like warm feeling go out to like down my arms, down my legs, to my fingertips and my toes. And I remember feeling like this is what it's about. And more importantly, too, like I felt like I was a part of when I did it. Like I kind of felt like I fit into the group of the family, because it was one of those things where I had my first drink. It was like I think it was Christmas or New Year's Eve. I can't remember,
Mhm.
but it was one of those ones. Very Irish family.
Okay.
There's none of my parents aren't alcoholic. My brothers aren't alcoholic, but it was kind of one of those things where it was like we'll give the kid the little like the small glass. You know what I mean, for
Right.
on a holiday, and I just felt like I fit into the family unit for once, and I
Okay.
just wanted more of it. And that naturally progressed. And then my brother is older than me by about 5 years. So
Mhm.
I got access to everything way quicker,
Yeah.
because you got to keep in mind, like when he's 17 and starting to experiment with stuff, which is pretty on par for normal, like a 17-year-old kid getting ready to go into college.
Mhm.
I'm 12. But by
Yeah.
extension, like I got access to all the booze, all the weed, all the mushroom, like you name it. Like I had access to it. And I definitely use that in my favor. So
Right.
by
Yeah,
12,
my sister is 10 years older than me, so I definitely have
yeah.
that experience.
Yeah, I think by 12, I was pretty much drinking daily. And
Mhm.
then I was started smoking weed around the same time. And then just the natural progression from there.
Okay, so it started really early for you. Did your parents notice that this was going on?
Hell yeah. They did.
And what did that look like?
Oh my, it looked like a train wreck is kind of what it looked like. I mean, so the thing is, like they didn't know what to do about it or with it.
Right.
Um, like I said, like there's alcoholism, it runs in my family, but historically speaking, it skips a generation.
Yeah.
It at least in my genetics, like my parents unaffected, my brother unaffected, me, I got alcoholism tenfold, dude. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
they just didn't know what to do. So early on, they kind of just looked at it like, oh, he's going through a phase, like he's just experimenting with stuff, like that'll fizzle out in time. The same way it did with my brother is kind of what they assumed. And then
Right.
it just kept getting worse. then I
Okay.
then I just started getting kicked out of all the schools, getting expelled all the time, getting in legal trouble. I mean, I got arrested for the first time I was 14 for a burglary of all
Wow.
things. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, and even then, they kind of just chalked it up to, I mean, it was just like circumstances, it was just a one-off.
Like
But
kind of who you were hanging out with type of thing, or
yeah, like just kids being mischievous. But then,
Mhm.
once you get kicked out of like the third school in like a 2-year span, it's kind of like, all right, like what's going on here?
Mhm.
And once that happened, they starting to open their eyes to it a little bit.
Right. So you're doing all this stuff, and what kind of like what did your life look like during this time? Like during your addiction, what was life like?
In adulthood or as a kid?
I guess both, right? Like leading up to it all.
Yeah, so, like, as a kid, I just looked like a party animal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just looked like the dude that the schools were always because I mean, you gotta keep in mind, like, I got kicked out of a public school during summer vacation. That's hard to do. That's like getting fired on a weekend, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it
That's
just doesn't
Friday.
happen. So, I bounced around from school to school, and in adulthood's where things got weird, 'cause I graduated high school. And in my senior year of high school, I already been kicked out of all the schools that were willing to take me. So I
Mhm.
got placed into a school that was designed exactly for kids like me. Everybody there was me. You know what I mean? It was like this was like the last stop on the block, therapeutic boarding school year round, the works. But when I was there, I crushed it, dude. Like I had like straight A's. Like I became valedictorian while I was there. Did like the speech at graduation, all the things. But one of the things that was super dope while I was at this school was they started having a lot of conversations with me about like, all right, man, like you're going nowhere fast. What do
Right.
you want to do? And through a series of events, like we discovered that like I wanted to fight wildfires. I wanted to fight forest fires out west. So they actually, while I was in the school, put me in the wildfire academy. So when I got out of school, I pretty much went straight into fighting fires. Um,
Mhm.
I did take a tactical break first based on a DUI. I mean,
Right. Okay.
yeah, I mean, I graduated high school and like 10 days later, I had my first DUI. So
Okay.
we had to, press pause on fighting wildfires for a few months. But after that, like I
Mhm.
went straight out there and did that. And then now I'm in this environment and this community full of, you know, type one personality, like alpha male type
Mhm.
dudes, where drinking is not only like tolerated, it's heavily encouraged. And I was like, this is
Right.
it. Like this is where I was supposed to be the whole time. Um, and of course, like I kept getting in legal trouble there with, I want to say small things, like I wasn't doing like violent crime
Right.
yet. We'll get to that, but I was getting DUIs more and more. Um,
Mhm.
there started to be a pattern. I was like, man, the cops are really after me. And it's like, no, man, like you just keep getting blackout drunk and driving around.
Right.
Um, and eventually that career path ended. I got to be medically retired, which was
Right.
really just kind of code for like, dude,
You
you're
gotta go.
yeah, man. Like it was basically like they sat me down. They were basically, in a nutshell, said we're gonna medically retire you. You've way too much of a drinking problem to continue doing this. So what you
Right.
do? And I was like, shit. Now what? Because I
Right.
didn't know what to do. I was like, that was my whole life. That was my identity. I thought that was like my life purpose, like the path I was supposed to be on. And now it's just poof, gone. And
Right.
in my mind, it still is like, okay, like drinking's a problem, but at the same time, this could have happened to anybody, right? And
Yeah. Well, it's
so,
also weird since you are a professional, right? We should talk
yeah.
about this. It's also weird because this happened to me too, right? I live in a small town, middle of nowhere. There's not really much to do.
Mhm.
Everybody, what you do is drink, right? And like you said there, drinking was super encouraged. So it's really, really a mind fuck, I think, when
Yeah,
you
dude.
look around and everybody's doing the same thing, but something's really wrong and different with you.
Right.
And there is, right? Because there's a difference when you are actually an alcoholic, you are actually like starting to be like dependent, and other people are drinking a whole hell of a lot, probably just as much as you, but they aren't addicted,
Mhm.
right? And isn't that weird?
Exactly. And like one of that was like that's the main metric we use is like for I don't want to say diagnosing because I'm not a doctor. I don't diagnose people, but like for helping them determine if they're alcoholic or not. It's like like when you drink, can you control how much you drink? For me, it's a hard no, I can't.
Right,
And when and part two to that is when you stop, can you stay stopped on your own? And for me, the answer is yes for about 2 or 3 days or until I go to jail, whichever comes first.
right.
Something has to intervene on my drinking
Hmm.
for me to stop drinking, whether that's the police, whether that's a job, whether that's,
Right,
you know, whoever her is at the time, you name it. But like, I can't control how much I drink when I drink, and when I stop, I can't stay stopped. And that same story is true for me, whether it's cocaine, which I later learned I really, really like, and pain pills or anything I could
right,
put in a needle. Like I said, like for me, like I'm a garden variety kind of drug addict and alcoholic. Like if it's there,
right,
I'll do it.
right. Yeah. Okay. So you were getting these DUIs, you get kicked out of firefighting,
Yeah.
and then what
Yeah.
happens?
So I don't know. So in my mind, this was like my logical thinking. At
Hmm.
the time, I was like, I have no wife, I have no like committed relationship, I have no kids. I'm gonna move to Florida. So that's what I did. I went to Florida, and I originally went to Florida to go to treatment. Um, as a whole, by the time I actually got sober when I was 28, I'd been to 6 treatment centers at that point, and they were all the same story. Like I would go try to get out of trouble, or at least smooth things over with whoever needed smoothing over best I
Hmm.
could by going to treatment. But when I went to Florida, that was where things got really, really dark because that's when I got into the drug game at a much deeper level than just using, I guess I'll say.
Okay.
I didn't sell drugs. I don't say that like with some like merit badge, like, oh, I didn't sell drugs, but I worked
Right.
for drug dealers. So in the way that kind of came to fruition was I didn't know what to do. At the time, I was a pretty big dude back then because I was competing in bodybuilding. I was abusing the shit out of steroids, and I can still carry a firearm. Right. So I went
Okay.
into private security contracting, like bodyguarding, stuff like that, which sounds
Mhm.
cool, but was hella boring. Like you basically just kind of hang out with like businessmen while they get like fucked up in Miami. Like and nothing ever happened. It was the most boring job I ever had in my life. It sucked, but it paid well. And I got into a lot of these like kind of upscale nightclubs. And through doing so, I got connected with just some people who are in that world of drugs. So I ended
Okay.
up going to work with them and basically just doing the same thing, but for this one particular individual. So I would be there on different kind of drug deals. There was never actually drugs in the room, but just like the business side of negotiating deals,
Right.
driving them around, providing security, stuff like that, and that led to like just some really violent crime type of situations. And things just got really, really dark. And I finally, when I was there, I got to that point where I didn't know who I was anymore, and I had
Mhm.
become somebody I thought I would never become, and I was no longer okay with it.
Right.
Mhm.
So your conscience was kind of like kicking in, and you were like, I don't want to do this stuff anymore. Not
Yeah.
necessarily even the drugs and whatnot, but like your
Mhm.
lifestyle.
Exactly. But like what I didn't know at the time was that those two they weren't exclusively connected, but
But
they
they're
were still
connected.
connected, So it was one of those things too, where like I was starting to realize like I don't want in this lifestyle. This isn't for me. But how do you get out of it? right?
I know,
Because
how do you?
well, looking at it from this individual side, it's kind of like, well, like everything. So like, how do we just cut you loose?
Yeah.
And I I didn't get really cut loose. Like I got incarcerated. So and the
So
whole
that's
time,
kind of a saving grace in a weird way,
I mean,
right?
yes and no. Like I still had to go clean up my messes and that side of things when I got out, or when not when I got out, but when I got sober. Um, but while I was locked up, like I was on high alert the whole time because I was locked up in a different state, but I knew people knew where I was.
Mhm.
And like on that side of the, the drug game, it, if you're in jail, you're easy to get a hold of,
Yeah.
which is kind of counterintuitive. You think most people who maybe they don't have any exposure to that side of, the lifestyle would think like, oh, you're in jail, like no one can get to you, you're in jail. And it's like you can get got, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the whole time I'm on high alert, like thinking like, all right, like one of these days I'm gonna go take a shower and I'm gonna get poked full of holes or something like that.
Mhm.
And it never happened. So I get out of jail, right? Um, eventually. And at this point, I got my probation transferred to Tennessee. And this you want to talk about God moments. This was kind of one of those God moments. It was because in my head, I had never been to Nashville. I'd never been to Tennessee. At least, I mean, I maybe drove through it as like a small child or something like that. But like, I've never like been in Tennessee. But for some reason, there was just this overpowering thing inside of me that was like, you have to go to Nashville. You have to go to Nashville. You have to go to Nashville. And, that makes it really hard to explain to people. Right? It's like, why do you have to go to Nashville? I don't know. What are you going to do when
Right.
you get there? I don't know. Where are you going to live? I don't know. I know I'm supposed to go.
Right.
So we eventually, that pushing it enough and pushing it enough, I finally got to go to Nashville, and that's where I eventually got sober. Um, well, on the outskirts, I came to Nashville almost 8 years ago to the day, because
Oh,
today's
cool.
October 15th. So I flew to Nashville on Halloween Day, 2016.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay, so when you said once I got sober, I still had to go take care of all my stuff, I'm
yeah,
assuming you're referring to like your amends, like 12-step stuff, right? So
correct.
you're telling me you went and took care of like old drug dealer
100%.
stuff?
100%. Yeah, all of
That's
them.
real brave. I would have prayed about it and let it go.
I didn't want to go. In my head, I thought I was going to get executed. I'm for real. I thought I even told my sponsor at the time, who's currently my sponsor right now. I
Right.
was like, dude, if I go down there, like I'm gonna get executed. Like there's no fucking way I'm going down in that den of thieves and coming out of there alive. Just no way.
Mhm.
Well, I think he knew more than I did. Right. And about how that would probably go, because he had similar experiences. I mean, he wasn't in violent crime, but he wasn't committing violent crime. But when his entire life, like he grew up in organized crime, like
Right.
just what's the word I'm looking for? Just throughout his whole family. Like that's what his dad did. That's what his
Right.
grandpa did. That's what you know what I mean? It was just organized crime. So he probably knew a lot more than I did, and he was like, "You need to go." So I went and I cleaned up everything, and I got completely, for lack of a better word, just like blessed out. And even now, me and my wife were talking about this the other day. Like,
Mhm.
if shit hit the fan, I can go to the Fort Lauderdale beach area between really like West Palm and Miami, and that is the safest place in the world for me to be.
Wow.
100% through
So they
that.
were like, it's okay, like just go.
Once I explained everything and what I'm trying to do now and what I am doing now, um, at the time I wasn't doing interventions yet, but I was working in the substance abuse space. I was working in treatment.
Mhm.
Um, So I go down there and I just explain why I'm there, what I'm trying to do as far as my program of recovery. They had a I should say, had a lot of questions,
Mhm.
but at the same time, like completely supportive. And now I could go to Florida, wherever, and it's the safest place in the world for me to go. 100%. It's substantially safer for me than Nashville, for
Okay,
sure.
well, good thing you did your amends because I would have skipped it. No lie. I would have just prayed about it.
I was a nomadic drunk, so like through that process in my program, like I had to go all over the country
Right.
to
I
do.
definitely get that. I
Yeah.
guess like I wasn't involved in anything like that, right? Mine was more different kind of stuff. I guess like mine was more like stuff I didn't want to do, like ego wise, right? Like I was embarrassed or but it wasn't like I was scared to do it, right? So luckily, because I'm a big old baby.
Well, I mean, don't let like the face tattoos and stuff fool you. Like me too. Me too.
Okay, so you get into working into treatment or working in treatment, you've done your amends, you've done like the 12 steps, all of that. And what was life looking like? Like, is life getting better for you? Is what's going on?
So when I first got sober, I mean, I got sober October 7th, 2017. All right. So almost a full year, not quite, almost a full year after I got to Tennessee is when I got sober.
Right,
So over the past 7 years that I've been in recovery, when I first got sober, it was rough, man. At the same time, like my life was very simple. It was just the recipe of each of the day just wasn't complicated. It was
right.
wake up, go to like prayer, meditation,
Hmm.
meetings, volunteer work, sponsorship, like et cetera, et cetera. And then when I started working in recovery, when I was 6 months sober it was a 12-step immersion program. It's kind of like AA boot camp. It was awesome.
Right.
It was awesome. But
Hmm.
I was so poor working there. I made no money. I'm talking two t-shirts in the wintertime, kind of broke.
Hmm.
And so, financially, like things were tough. But I think as long as you're trying to do the next right thing, things just have a way of working
Right.
out. And that was my experience. And then working in treatment, I eventually got so bored. Like I'm just not a dude who's built for, the kind of schedule that it's like at 8:30 we do this, and at 9:30 we do this, and then at 11:30 we do this, and 2:30 we do every day, 5 days a week. Like I don't know. I'm not built for that. I'm built for just unpredictability and some chaos and some carnage and just some sketchy stuff.
Hmm.
I like the front lines. You know what I mean?
Well, I think many of us addicts and alcoholics are built like that, right? A lot of us are super ADD, like super all over, like we have to have stuff going on, right? And for
Yeah.
those who don't know, I think a lot of people think treatment is like super exciting. And not that I mean, it can be, right? I've done my share of chasing people down the beach for miles. I don't know why they always have so much energy in their backpacks and the
Yep.
girls would bring everything when they'd be leaving, right? I'd be like, come on, it's 100 degrees out.
Exactly.
But for the most part, it really is like we wake up at 8 a.m. We go to meditation, we see the nurse, we do, right? And it's like, oh God, it
Yeah.
does, it can get really routine, right?
Yeah.
So what did you do to shake it up?
So that's the thing. Like, here's what I've noticed, and this sounds probably, but this is one of those things people are gonna hear and probably be like, "Okay, Zach, like that sounds good," but I'm dead ass. Like, this is the truth. When I'm doing the next right thing, when I'm involved in this work, and by this work I mean the work in my program of recovery,
Right.
work. This is what I do as my career, and I love it. And the two definitely have a lot of intersections, but the work is in my.
Right.
Anyways, when I'm involved in that work, it's almost like I just get ushered through life
Yeah.
with very little part on my own. right? All I have to do
Like,
is focus on like what's the next right thing. And what happened, like when I is remember how I mentioned Darren Hobbs?
hmm
So Darren, me and Darren, we used to cross paths when I first came to Tennessee for probably about 6 months. And for whatever reason, I was one of those names that he just kind of remembered, like, oh, Zach Livingston. Like I remember the name. And we crossed paths, like we knew of each other, but we didn't know each other at all. Because I was still drinking whiskey and, I say like, well, we won't church it up. Like I was drinking whiskey, running crazy around Nashville, smoking crack, like you name it. Like I was a lunatic. But for whatever reason, this guy just kind of kept like a thumbprint on where I was and what I was doing. And when it was come time for me to leave to like start exploring different options besides working directly in treatment
hmm
through my network in my own 12-step fellowship, one guy was like, you need to call Darren. Because what I was describing that I wanted to do was exactly what Darren had been doing for a long time, which was interventions. And I wanted to know what else was out there. And for whatever reason, intervention always popped up in my head because it checked all the boxes of the things that I like and am naturally reasonably good at.
right.
So I call this Darren dude, and anyways, he's like, man, come on down to Nashville Recovery Center. Nashville Recovery Center at the time was like a PHP IOP level
Right.
of care, but Darren was one of the guys who had founded that. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna come down. He's like, great, let's just talk. So I show up. I don't know why the hell this guy hired me or gave me a shot. Cause
Right.
I mean, dude, I was looking rough. Like I had a healing face tattoo. Um, I was I had the tip of my finger sewn back on because it was right after 4th of July weekend. And for whatever reason, like 4th of July weekend is like my favorite holiday, but I have a terrible habit of going to the emergency room on it. Just
Right.
so I've got this healing face tattoo, like my fingers hanging on by a literal thread, you know what I mean? And we
Right.
talk and he's like, you know what, man, like you're perfect. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I don't know why, but like you come with this one individual stamp of approval that I have a lot of respect for. So like, let's give you a shot. And he ended up putting me to work for Nashville Recovery Center, and where like I worked on, some of like the operations side of things. Still working with guys, but wearing a lot of different hats at the same time. And the whole time he was grooming me to do interventions and because he knew I wanted to. And he knew like I was coming to work there so I could ultimately work with him, not PHP IOP level of care stuff.
Right.
And it happened somewhat organically because I started doing a lot of kind of like side work for Darren as far as doing sober transports, taking guys from intervention, being the one to fly with them to go to treatment or drive them to treatment, whatever
Right.
the case may be, doing sober companions, things like that. And then probably about 4 months later or so, I was working full time with Darren, and he mentored me and taught me how to do interventions. He helped me get, the proper, sets of letters behind my name to be able to do interventions on my own and be able to do them effectively. And that was that was in 2020. So we're coming up on 5 years later. Me and Darren are still doing the same thing side by side together.
I love that. So, how it says in the big book, like you'll intuitively know, that's really kind of what happened in your life, right? Like it just started going and you kind of knew what you wanted to do, knew you wanted to go to Nashville, knew you wanted to do something different. That's really cool. So, what's your favorite thing about interventions?
Ooh, I okay. So God, that's such a loaded question. It's one of those ones like my mind is going 100 miles an hour right now. Like, all right,
Mhm.
like shit, which one is it? When I boil it down, what I really like is the fact that I get to play a part in somebody's story about how they got sober. And
Mhm.
I get to play a small role in helping be like that catalyst that gets them to
Okay.
take that first step.
Yeah.
Because it's not that I'm like unique or
Right.
special or anything like that. Like I remember the people who were a big part of my catalyst to take that first
Yeah.
step. But what I love so much about it is I'm very actively involved in, a recovery fellowship of my own. I know you can tell I'm being kind of cryptic about that just based on,
Right.
traditions and stuff, but I still cross paths with a lot of these guys that I've done interventions on.
Right.
And I see them get 1-year chips and 2-year chips, and I see them sponsoring guys. And I see the girls I've done interventions on sponsoring women and taking them through, their own recovery process. And it's a really cool thing to get to experience because sometimes people could look at interventionists like sometimes alcoholics and addicts can look at interventionists like we're the Grim Reaper. And it, the overwhelming majority of people I've done interventions on, that hasn't been my experience. A lot of times, like I get to see these guys and gals come back out of treatment, get involved in a program of recovery, and then the next thing you know, like we're just two people doing the thing shoulder to shoulder, and
Right.
like, we get to become friends.
Yeah.
There's two sides to that coin though, because on the other side of the coin, like I'm not gonna lie, I love interventions because one, it works. Like we've seen it. I think
Mhm.
I think the industry rate right now, at least from intervention door to door to treatment, is like 85 to 90%.
Mhm.
Last time me and Darren crunched it, we're somewhere right up around like the 95% mark.
You
So
mean like interventions getting people to go to treatment?
yeah, so we know it works. We know that. I
Do
love
you know what the statistics are on people getting sober? Like staying sober?
well, yes, I say yes and no because I think so much of that, at least this is me wearing the professional hat.
Mhm.
So much of that depends on how much family involvement is included early on and for and how long term the treatment and the family involvement is. Like
Right.
we've seen our track record of success grow exponentially just because like we do everything in 3-month chunks. And most of the families that we work with for 9 to 12 months. Same with the alcoholic and addict. Right. So we don't really just do an intervention and say like, well, good luck. Like we
Mhm.
stay with them and we coach them, and I work with the addicts and the alcoholics, and Darren works with the families. And this is not our saying. I heard Kin Seeley says this all the time.
Mhm.
Kin Seeley, for those of you who don't know, is if there was a Mount Rushmore of interventionists, Kin Seeley would be one of the faces on it for real. He's like one of the, in my mind, he's one of like the OG like godfathers of intervention. But his saying is be clear it's a year because with his company, they tell them up front, like this is a year commitment that we're all gonna make an agreement to work together on.
It's funny. I actually love that because it's one of the reasons that when I started back into wanting to work into recovery or in recovery, it's why I became a coach and didn't go
Yeah.
back into treatment. And it's because I went to treatment so many times and I went home and I got drunk
Yeah.
every time. And not to say that treatment isn't good, it's wonderful, but there was just never a lot of follow up on my part, the
Yeah.
center's part, whatever, whoever's fault it was. Don't blame it on anybody at this time now because I got where I wanted to be. But I just went home and did exactly what I knew how to do, right?
Exactly.
And I think that being in coaching and probably being in intervention, you get to have these longer periods where you're working with people, even in their own environment. And that makes it so that it's going to be more long standing and like have a foundation, right? You don't just go home and you're like, okay, what now? 10
Exactly.
kids, no baby daddy. That's my experience, right? I'm like, what do I do? I don't know. I get liquor. That's what I do.
Mhm.
So I think that that really takes away from that problem, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I heard this saying the other day and I really liked it because um what the person said is you can see my dog
Oh, what
stress.
kind? I can't see it.
Here. This is Banjo. He's
Oh,
He's a beagle mix, but he pretty much goes most of the places that I do.
I
Um,
love it.
yeah,
My
he's our
dog like growls at me when he wants something. He's
yeah.
like super vocal, so I have to kick him out of the room.
He's kind of like our office OG. Everybody people get pissed if I don't bring him now. Um,
Oh,
and back to sleep. So well, what I heard the other day is okay. So I heard somebody say that we don't fall to the level of our goals, but the systems that we have in place, right? And what he went on to say was like, hey, everybody at the start line of the 100-meter race has the same goal to win the race, right? Not only one person does, right? So
okay. So say the saying again. What is it?
we don't fall we don't fail, or excuse me, we don't fall to the level of our goals, but the
Mhm.
systems that we have in place.
Okay.
So everyone's got the same goal. Who's got the best systems to meet the goal, right? The
Right.
guy who has no systems in place, probably not going to meet that goal, right? The guy who
Right.
does have like a strong set of systems in place, probably going to be much more likely to not just meet that goal, but actually excel at it, right?
Right.
And I could think about that in terms of business, right? If somebody has like a goal of I want to make, you know, $10 million in revenue, but they have no systems in place, they're probably not
Right.
going to. I'm pretty sure that Amazon has some really incredible systems in place to run effectively, efficiently, et cetera, et cetera. And I think a lot of that can be translated into recovery, right? What
Right.
systems do I have in place when I come out of treatment?
Mhm.
Does the family have their own recovery program separate? Do I have a sponsor? Do I have a 12-step fellowship or some kind of recovery community that I'm utilizing? Am I
Right.
doing any kind of volunteer work to give back? What am I doing for spiritual development? What am I doing? You see what I'm saying? So like we can build all this stuff in to that and develop and have basically say, here you go. Here's systems on a silver platter for you to come out to. And the
Right.
formula is not overly complicated.
No,
If
it's really not. It's funny because even for myself, right? I went through these 2 decades where if you would have talked to me, I would have thought I would have died of alcoholism, right? And I didn't think I was going to be able to get sober for almost 20 years, like literally 20 years.
yeah,
And as soon as I got sober, like after the first like 3 to 6, I'll say like 6 months, I was like, what was so hard about that, right? Like, what do they say? It's not simple, but it's easy, or whatever that is. Like, all of
yeah,
a sudden, it was like I had this routine and I had built these systems, like you said. And I all of a sudden look around and I have a life that I'm proud of and I like. And I don't want to mess it up, especially not with freaking a hangover and being miserable 24/7, right? So I look
exactly.
back at that and I'm like, people would tell me before, like, play the tape forward. That never ever made sense
Yeah.
to me until I had a life that I enjoyed. Because now when I think about, okay, this is what would happen if I drank,
Mhm.
it would literally make my life so different and so miserable. And I'm not like that now. But back
Exactly.
then, in early sobriety, I was like, I still feel like shit. What would it do? Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And the
it
reality
just
too,
didn't make sense to me.
and the reality too is like everything in my life is contingent on my recovery. Like
Yeah.
everything is connected to it. Like without that, I have no career. Without that, I'm not going to be a married dude for very long. I'll tell you that. Without that, I'm not going to be a father anymore. Like that will be taken from me. The list goes on and on and on and on.
Like now
Everything
there's a
I
lot
have is
to lose.
connected to my recovery. Every single thing.
Now there's a lot to lose. And I think that that is exactly what I didn't have before, right? It was always like, I'm already at the bottom. Like, what is there to lose or what is there to mess up, right? And I think like once you start to build those blocks and you have things to lose, it's so much different.
And that's another thing that I like doing what I get to do professionally, which is which you do also because you also do recovery coaching, is if you recall earlier in our conversation, one of the things I said was like I didn't know who I was, what to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I still had that same list of unknowns when I got sober. You know what I mean? I knew I liked being outside. But I knew it gets really hot in Tennessee. Like I don't want to work outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to go swimming and like bass fishing outside, but that's about it. And
Right.
I was like, past that, I have no clue. Like I thought it was firefighting. It wasn't. God had other plans. That's cool. It definitely wasn't, the criminal side of things. I just God had other plans, thank goodness. But at the same time, like I still had no clue about, do I go left? Do I go right? Do I run in circles? Like, what do I do? And
Right.
that's one of the things that I really, really like guys that I get to work with after they're done with treatment on a recovery coaching and case management level is
Yeah.
building them, helping them build a life that they want, not what I think it should look like or what Joe Schmo thinks it should look like what they want it to look like.
Right.
And that part's
It's
to me
super
fun.
amazing. It's super
Yeah,
amazing. Because
yeah, we like to
you look at somebody who didn't even feel there was many possibilities for them before, and then you're seeing them with, like, I know it's cliche, but like this light in their eyes, right? Like, I could do this. Like, I could make something of myself. I could be that parent I want to be, like, whatever it is, right?
yeah, absolutely. And it's really fun too because we can start on like this foundational level of
Hmm.
building a life, right? If you're gonna build anything, you gotta start with the foundation. But
Yeah.
what I like to do is start here and build it as wide as we possibly can because it's kind of like a triangle. You know what I mean? Like the broader you build out the base, the higher the point, right?
Yeah.
And then at a certain time, like my job at that point is to get them free of me as quickly as possible, right? Like I want to work my way out of clients all the time. And
I
that's
love that.
it's so cool when you get to see like guys and gals where it's like, oh shit, like you got a license? Damn, you got a car? Well, you
Yeah.
got a credit card? How'd you do that? You know what I mean? And just watching them like get real gassed up about their lives, dude, so fun.
All right. So, last question.
Okay.
What's it like being on TV? Like, you're like, I mean, you're kind of like famous. What's it like?
So I might be on TV sometime. It's funny, right? Somebody was like, "Are you on TV?" And I said, "Sometimes." And yeah, I might be on TV sometimes, but I'm definitely not famous. But it's been really, it's surreal because it was one of those things where I'll say this: the last episode of the most current season, when we filmed it, we were in Northern California, up in the mountains in late August. It was gorgeous,
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. And I was doing that on my 34th birthday. And it was one of those moments where it's like, how? How did this be?
Pinch me.
Yeah. And then once it actually aired on TV, I think that's when it became like actually real to me. Like I knew I did
Right.
that, but I didn't really it didn't fully sink in until I got to see it
Mhm.
on TV with everybody else. And it's been a really cool experience. We've definitely been stopped a handful of times, which is my favorite thing in the world. Not just like not in an egotistical way, I promise. But um, me and Darren both, we were together. We were in downtown Nashville, and a cop stopped us. We were like, shit, because I mean, Darren, I mean, he has not been. He's got his own story, but I'll say this: if you did cocaine in the early 2000s in Nashville, you did Darren's cocaine, and he went to prison for some real time for it. But and then we all heard a little bit of my story there. But at the same time, like
Well,
having
the fact that you never leaves when a cop is behind you. Like, it somehow just is like, oh, it's always there.
every time, but this cop was like, "Hey, you guys," and we stopped, and we were both like, "Ah, no, what we do?" And he stopped us to ask for pictures and tell us he really liked the show, and I was like,
I love it.
this is insane to me." And I think what's craziest, or the part that stands out the most to me, and once again, like, I know this sounds good, but it really is the truth, is that I didn't really create any of this. Like, I haven't self-made anything. Like, I can't be more clear about that, because I can't take credit for stuff that I didn't do. You know what I mean? It was just through a series of events of, like I said, doing this work and doing the next right thing and really trying to be a man in recovery and do the things that I think a man in recovery should do. All of this stuff was just happened. Like, I didn't
Love
create anything. So it's once again, to me, it's just been a really surreal moment to show, like, what recovery can do in somebody's life, and I'm not unique at all there.
Well, I usually say at the end, what do you want to leave our guests or anybody who's listening with? And I actually think you did it right there. I think
It's
that
so
that is
good.
perfect. The next right thing will lead you to the perfect place, right?
Yeah, every time, that's been my experience.
All
Every
right.
time,
Well,
and
I think
sometimes I
it's the
just don't know what
coolest.
it is.
I think it's the coolest thing ever that you're like on TV and super humble and cool. So thank you for that. And tell them where they can check you out at, like your Instagram, all that.
Yeah, so, you can always check out our website for me or Darren, the firm addictionconsulting.com. Best way to get a hold of me directly is definitely through Instagram at the Zach Livingston, THEE Zach Livingston. I handle all my social media. I respond to every single message I get. So anybody needs to reach out, or anybody who has questions or just wants to say hi, shoot me a DM, and I'd love to hear from you guys.
All right. And as for me, you can find me at www.controlledchaoscoaching.com and on all the platforms as Controlled Chaos Coaching. And thank you for listening. Have a great day. As we conclude this powerful episode of Controlled Chaos, a recovery podcast, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every listener who has joined us on this journey of resilience and renewal. These stories are shared with the hope that someone out there struggling in the shadows of addiction may find a glimmer of hope and inspiration. If you're listening and in need of support on your own path to sobriety, please remember that you are not alone. Visit my website at www.controlledchaoscoaching.com and schedule a discovery call today. Together we can explore the possibilities of healing, growth, and a brighter future ahead. Thank you for being a part of this community, for your courage in facing your challenges, and for believing in the power of transformation. Remember, there's always hope, and help is within reach. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful, and keep moving forward on your journey to recovery. Love you mucho.